Will be better next time I try. And even if I still can't do it, yeah, you know that I'm gonna stick to it. Yes, it's all about going through it, and I'm gonna tell you why. Whoopsie, whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay. It's okay. Whoopsies are what it takes to get better and better every day. Whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay. It's okay. Whoopsies, help me look, see, I'm better at this today. Woo! Whoopsie, 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 whoopsies. I'm a little embarrassed when I look at my drawing compared to this. I'm just not getting anywhere with this. It makes me wanna hide. Aw, don't be embarrassed. Don't hide. You should have seen mine the first time I tried. It took a lot of whoopsies to look this way.
No one's perfect on their first day. Whoopsie.
Whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay. It's okay. Whoopsies are what it takes to get better and better every day. Whoopsie, 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 whoopsie.
Well, what about this? I want to jump rope, but nope, I just can't do it.
Well, not yet. Come on and practice with me. You'll see there's nothing to it.
Whoa! Whoopsie.
Whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay. It's okay. Whoopsies, help me look, see, I'm better at this today. Woo!
It was only a dream, the waves of evil crashing over us. It was only a weak and faithful scream beneath the battlements. I know it's hard to follow before it's too late. Wake up, my love, please don't give up on me. It's hard. Wake up. It was only a dream, the waves of evil crashing over us. It was only a weak and faithful scream beneath the battlements. But I know it's hard before long, before it's too dark. Wake up, my love, please don't give up on me.
What is up? What is up, you guys? We are back at it again. Another epic day here in 100 days of Rootkit. Chugging along, we've mastered the basics of Python, mastered some of the basics of C. Alright, so we're moving on our journey to Python, talking about APIs and great modules like Flask. Alright, great modules like Flask, which allow us to make our own APIs. But before we get into that, let's talk about ourselves a little bit, shall we? Let me go ahead and pull up the site. If you don't know, we are Rootkit, a non-profit organization here in the US of A. And how do I... Oh no, what have I done? I have no way to follow this. No! Oh, but why? Okay, let's try that again. We are Rootkit, non-profit organization here in the US of A. Don't go to college, don't go to any other boot camp, just come to us. Learn and get certified. Industry's best comp sci cert for a reason. Alright? For a reason. Get the cert and get a job. Alright? If you go over to our blog, you can see we have even more free stuff, like our week 10 giveaway going on live right now. 2 days left on that, so make sure you fill it out. Just press the green button and then show that you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, following us on Twitch, etc., basic things like that. Alright, additionally, there's links in the description of the video and somewhere on the Twitch channel, if you're not watching on Twitch, where you can go to this beautiful page here, where you can donate. All donations are 100% tax deductible if you're in the US of A, so avoid paying your taxes. Donate today. Additionally, depending on how much you donate, you can unlock certain rewards like our epic stickers, our collab t-shirt, and our epic sweater. I'm not wearing any of our merch right now because I forgot to put them on. Alright, we shall continue. All donations are being matched 1-for-1 for the first 10,000 donations. Alright, first 10,000 donations. And we have pillars along the way like teaching for 24 hours straight, shaving my head here live on stream, and shaving my beard. No one wants to see, so we don't need to get to that one. Alrighty, let me pull up the streams. Any questions you guys had from the previous days? Any questions at all? If not, we're going to go ahead and chug along here. Alright, so today we're going to talk about APIs a little bit. And then we're going to start getting into Flask. Flask is one of many modules that allow you to easily create APIs. Now, what are APIs? Great question. APIs stand for Application Programming Interface. So we can also Google it, define API. And you can see here, it's going to, there we go. Not in the definition here, but right here, Application Programming Interface. All right. What does this mean? It allows you to interface with another application. All right. With another application and start programming and expanding your tool set to a completely new dimension. Now, APIs are used very loosely in regards to what they are conveyed for. A lot of times you'll even hear people refer to the libraries definitions and stuff as their API. That is a-okay. It's just a interface. Most commonly when people talk about APIs though, they mean web APIs. All right, they mean web APIs. So what I mean by, let's go to the Flask docs here. Some people will call this an API. All right, and this is different than a web API. All right, we're going to be looking at APIs, these ones, and then we're also going to be making web APIs. All right, shall we continue? So this is kind of like an extension of what we've already shown in regards to like pip installing. All right, in regards to pip installing is really great for Python. not great for other languages. All right, it's great for Python. It's great for extending the Python's language's capabilities. So you can get other people's code, new functionality that you don't have to generate from scratch. But what if you want to interface with something that was made in, I don't know, Java or Golang or Rust or JavaScript, another language, or you like something they have that they've created? You can't really pip install libraries that are written in other languages, right? They have to be for Python specific, which is kind of an issue, right? It's kind of an issue. It really takes away from the potential power you can have, all right? Especially if you, let's say you were programming in C and you wanted to use something that was made in Python. You no longer can do that. So what you can utilize instead is web APIs. Web APIs are an extra dimension to allowing you to make your application even more powerful. It's a language agnostic idea. What does that mean? It doesn't matter what language it was written in or what language you are using. When you interface with a web API, you get full power, just as the same as everyone else. You get the full, just everything to you. What are some common APIs? Well, there's lots of them. There's APIs, web APIs specifically for getting like the time, where you can get the time straight from like nuclear clocks orbiting in space to right here. You can interface with APIs by NASA themselves. So we type in NASA API. You can hook right into the APIs that NASA has. Can you show me some of them? So right here, you got your picture of the day and a bunch of other ones that Mars Weather Service API. If you hook into this, you can straight up start making programs for monitoring the weather on Mars if you want. What's something else that people are really crazed about right now? Anyone heard of ChatGPT? They have an API, GPT API. And you can go interface with that API. Give me the API docs, please. Get started. That's not what I want. Well, you gotta be difficult like this. Here we go. So they have an API also that you can hook into. This doesn't matter on the language. Anyone can use this. Anyone can use these APIs. In any language you can think of, it can be 100% used. That's the power of these APIs, all right? Of these APIs. So we're going to show how you can go about using them, how you can make your own, and then making an entire application, you know, combining all of these things together, which is hugely important, especially for you going out in your jobs, all right? Because pretty much the whole world is going to operate on APIs, all right? So let us continue forward, shall we? Let's talk about HTTP a little bit, all right? Because all APIs, or not all of them, most of them are going to be utilizing HTTP or HTTPS as the medium to communicate, to send requests back and forth, and for you to integrate into your language of choice. Now, HTTP/HTTPS, as you should know already since we've covered it, is unencrypted and encrypted versions of it. Depending on what you're doing, you may not even need it to be encrypted, all right? But a lot of services by default will be encrypted, all right? The only difference is that S for your encryption stuff. There should be no real setup for you to start utilizing HTTPS over HTTP. This is a protocol, which means it has certain things it requires you to do in order to utilize it properly, all right? To utilize it properly. You can't just send data to an API and hope that it works, all right? You have to use the HTTP protocol. So the HTTP protocol has a bunch of stuff in it. We can go ahead and do some Googling if we're not familiar with it. So if we do HTTP protocol, you don't need to do HTTPS, just HTTP is fine because they're both the same. Just one is encrypted. All right, they're both using HTTP. All right, they're both using HTTP. What is HTTP again? You should know this. It's going to be on the exam. It's for transferring text, basically downloading files. All right, for downloading files. All right, so it's just for downloading and moving data around. Now, it's great for you to read up and learn about this. There's something we're going to focus on particular, which is right here, the request portion of it. So they'll have several things here. One is called the methods. The other is going to be the path. Another thing is going to be the version. And then you have the headers, and technically you got the body also. Method is pre-made items or pre-made methods you can do. All right, you can do. For example, these are the common ones right here. Get and post are the two most common ones. All right, get is what you use every day. You used a get method to just get on the stream right now. Get allows you to get something, get a web page, get a video, get something, all right? And it will return to you that item. If you're downloading music, you're going to be using a get request, all right? So get allows you to go get something. Post is just like what you think it is. It's for posting something. Lots of us are familiar here with posting. Why did the term posting come around? Because it uses the post method. So they use the term post. All right. Post means you're going to send some data over and get it most likely recorded somewhere. All right. There's also an alternative called put. All right. We're not going to talk too much about that one right now. We're just going to be doing an intro to APIs and HTTP. There's different versions of HTTP because it is a protocol. Right? It's a piece of software that someone's making, right? And they produce new versions of it, right? And each version will have some things that the other versions can't do or can do. All right, so the version is potentially important depending on what you're doing. For us, we're not going to be doing anything that's that granular. And then there's headers. What are headers? Headers are additional little pieces of information you want to send along with your request in order to get it fulfilled. This could be stuff like, how do you prove that you are you? How do you authenticate? That will be sent in the headers usually. Additionally, who's sending the request and where you're sending the request to may be in the headers. For example, here, this is talking about the language. So French, they're requesting that you send them a web page potentially in French. Additionally, if I'm an advertiser, this is a great place where I'll store information on tracking you, all right? So you can store information about where you came from and where you're going, and that can be potentially tracked, all right? So you can track people's whereabouts over the interwebs. So this is a very important thing to understand. Again, if you ever forget any of this, just Google HTTP. And you can also Google HTTP methods. This is an important thing. And here's a list of all the methods that you can view and see what they're exactly used for. All right. Why are we talking about all this stuff? Why don't we just do things and get data over the interwebs? Well, it's not that simple. All right. It's never that simple. In Python, you have a couple pre-made pre-made libraries for making requests. I believe urlib is the one that's built in by default. So there's a library built into Python for urllib, which allows you to make requests. What type of requests? Well, if we click on requests here, you can see that it's for opening URLs mostly using HTTP. So this is going to be making HTTP requests. So if you want to get a website with this, you're going to need to know the basics of HTTP. Additionally, there's also something called Python socket. Python socket is something you can use also to retrieve data from websites. Socket is a very low level networking interface though. How low level? Well, pretty much it's a one-for-one port for the underlying C commands. It's pretty much one-for-one port of the underlying C commands. This is so low level that it doesn't even know what type of protocol you want to use in regards to sending data, period. So you actually have to specify whether you want to be sending in TCP, UDP, another new protocol that you have, or something completely different, and whether you want to use IP addresses or and what type of IP addresses, IPv4 or IPv6. All right, it's very, very low level, right? It's very, very low level, not the most friendly, but this could be great if you want to maybe make a server and always keep something open and listen 24/7 for new data. But again, this is pretty low level. Additionally, you can go about looking for extra modules because a lot of people don't really like URL lib requests because it can be kind of finicky. All right, it can be kind of finicky. So other people will look for alternatives. So if we do Python requests, there's a library called requests in Python, which makes it really easy to do HTTP requests. How easy? Well, if you want to do a GET request, you can do requests.get. And there you go. You've done a GET request. And it's the same thing for requests.post, etc., etc., etc. So, enough talking about these. Let's talk about Flask a little bit. All right, let's talk about Flask a little bit. I hope you guys all pipped installed Flask. So if you haven't already, whoops, let me pull this back. Let's pull up our 100 days of rootkit here. And let's go ahead and make a new folder. Not in here. Move, replace. And let's see here. Let's make a new folder. All right, let's call this one our Flask, or let's call this HTTP or APIs. All right, APIs is such a common term, we get a custom little folder icon. So in here, let's make something called, I don't know, main.py. And we're not gonna do anything with that yet. Make sure in your console, you type in something like pip install Flask, right? Pip install Flask, and make sure you install Flask. It may take a little bit of time to do. After you install Flask, if we head over to the Flask website, they'll have something here for installation and then quick start. If we click on quick start, we can see here's a minimal application. This is a full entire API application right here. Very, very small. So let's go ahead and copy this and see what's going on. We copied it. They have a nice little explanation here. We'll maybe look at that here in a second. But let's ourselves go ahead and just run this. So Python main, and I need to cd into the APIs folder, Python main, and that didn't fully run. It's gonna have me, okay, we're gonna need to do Flask. I swear you can get it to work without having to do this. If we do Flask and then run, and it's not because it's not called, what do you call it? Flask main run. Could not locate Flask application, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to stab this thing. Stabby, stabby. It wants app. App. There we go. Okay. So what you have to do here is you'll have access to this new thing called Flask. All right. So you're going to type in Flask, and then you're going to do tac app, and then this is the name of your Python file, right? The name of your Python file, which mine is called main. Don't do the py at the end of it. All right. Just do the name of it and then run. All right. And then you'll see it starts running, and it will tell you to Control-C to quit. If this does not work for you, there's an alternative you can do. you can type in Python TAC-M. TAC-M again lets you access the modules you've installed. We installed Flask. And so we're going to say Flask, then we'll do tac app, and we're going to say main because we want our main.py here to run. And then we're going to write run, and this will work as well, right? So you have two different ways to go about this, right? Two different ways to go about this. So let's chug along here. You'll see that some printing out has happened here. We have created a web server. We have fully created a web server from scratch right now. And this server was made in a couple lines of code. A full web server, all right? A full web server. And we can see here that our web server is currently running on this address. What address is this? That's right, your loopback address. You gotta know that for the exam. Loopback address can also be aliased with the term localhost. Either one will work, and you can see it's going to run on port 5000 by default. Now, if we go in and copy this and then paste it, you're going to see that we get some text here in our browser. All right, because again, this is a web server. But not only that, APIs utilize HTTP. You know what else utilizes HTTP? That's right, every website ever. So every time you go to a website, it's doing a GET request. So right now what we're doing is we're performing a GET request to go get this data here, right? I see a question. Are we in the... You can do it in whatever folder you want, Kamal. It does not need to be in the Photoshop folder, but it can be if you want to keep stuff in there. I made a new folder called APIs. So, by default, Flask is going to run on your local host at port 5000. As you can see here, we're importing Flask, and then Flask is doing some weird stuff here, where it's going to be generating an app, right? It's going to be generating an app for us. And then we can use this app to put decorators around functions. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, even if it did, it doesn't matter. We talked about PyCache. Again, a review. We talked about this before. I'm going to mention it again. PyCache is automatically generated sometimes when you run your Python code. It has cache in its name. That should give you a hint. It's going to be compiled Python code. It's going to be compiled Python code that is cached so it runs faster. So it runs faster because Python is very, very slow by default. All right. You can compile Python. You can compile Python, and this is going to be compiled. All right. All right. Oh, you're good, man. All you need is one file and to pip install Flask. All right, and then run the command, this command right here. So what is this? I can't remember if we talked about decorators yet. I don't think we have. There are special functions inside of Python called decorators. They exist in other languages also, but not all languages. This is more so, I would say this is more commonly found in object-oriented languages. All right. What decorators are is they are a function that will auto wrap around your function and give it some superpowers. Right? It's going to give it some superpowers. So how do you know if it's a decorator? It has this @ sign. All right, this @ sign. And so what superpower this is going to do is it's going to make our normal function here, which is just a normal function called hello world, that's going to return some text, right? That's going to return some text. You can even remove these p tags. That's HTML. We're not going to talk about that at all right now. All right. You can see right now if I try to, if I close this program and rerun it, you're going to see that it's not going to work anymore. We're going to get a not found. It's going to be very, very unhappy, because what this is doing is it's taking our normal Python function here and giving it the superpowers to be on this new web server we just created using Flask, and you can get it at this link. Well, this may not look like a normal link to you. Hold on, that's what we want to do. If we do Python, if we do, one second, because this is gonna annoy me. If you do Flask dev, and I think we still need to do tech app dev. Wait, hold on. Is it not? Is it before? Okay, let's go look at what's available on Flask, because this is going to really annoy me if... Run development server. We are running it. Why are you not doing quick reloading? Okay, well, that's just going to be annoying, but we'll continue on for now. Flask run tech app. That needs to go before. All right, we'll just deal with it for now. Okay, so it's going to give us the superpowers to access this at slash. What is slash? That's a great question. Slash is going to be the root of your URL, the root of your domain. All right, we are on localhost 5000. All right, localhost 5000, port 5000. So the root of this is going to be localhost 5000, or we could do a slash right here if you really want to see it. I think your browser will just auto take it away because it's already implied. All right, you're at localhost 5000, but the slash is literally like, you could put a slash right here. That's the equivalent. And there you go. Now you have a potentially functioning API. All right, the big thing to make this more of an official API is the formatting of your data shouldn't most likely be HTML data, which this is going to be. It should be more like JSON data, but don't worry about that right now. We'll get to that. To experiment with this, what if we want to have more functions? Because if you're making an API or you're accessing an API, for example, we go to NASA's website and we want to, you know, do something with all of this cool, well, I think they only have one link there. What's something else that's cool here? Come on, what? Give me a big API. These are just big queries. Okay, let's go over to OpenAI's site and look at their API, shall we? Okay, come on. There we go. API reference. There we go. So they have APIs here for getting a list of all of the models available, for completing your text automatically, for doing a chat bot. All right, and you'll see on all of these links that they have, they're going to tell you a couple of things. Post, which is the type of HTTP request you have to make. We haven't learned how to do one of these yet. We've only gone over get, because get's the default thing. All right, when you visit a web page, when we visit our API here, it's using get requests automatically. So we'll get to post later, but the next you'll notice is like a normal URL, because they are normal URLs. There is nothing different. They are normal URLs. All right, you could try to go to this right now. So if we try to go to this, well, by default, your web browser will do a get request. So this won't work if we try to go to it, but we can go and try right now anyways, and just see what's gonna happen. You'll see that it was not happy. This is more of a proper API output because it's going to be in JSON format, which we'll talk about later. But you'll see here that it's going to tell us that we got a little error, and it's going to say we need some tokens to pass it, blah, blah, blah. We'll get that for every one of theirs because they require you to have an active account with them, all right, before you can start using these. But it's the same thing. You can go visit it like I just showed you. We just visited it. So they have a bunch of different stuff, you know, API, open api.com/1 or v1/chat/completions. All right. This is going to be in almost the same format as the other ones up here. If we look right here, this one's api.openai.com/v1/completions. So slightly different. That one was /completions, and this one is /chat completions. So they're using different little endpoints, right? Different little endpoints right here to dictate what function you want to call on their program. Now, do we know what language they're programming this in? No, we have no idea. And it doesn't matter. It could be in C, it could be in Java, it could be in Python. Who cares? Who cares? It does not matter. That's the whole power of these APIs. It doesn't matter what they're made in, and it doesn't matter what language we are programming in. As long as we can reach these websites, we can get data from them. So we can do the same thing here in our site. Which Flask version should we be on again? Any of them should work, so don't worry about that. If we copy this code right here and we repaste it, again, we can't have two functions named the same thing. So let's change this second one to, I don't know, hacks, right? This will not work out of the box because both of these are going to try to be at the root. And we should also probably change the text. So the hacks endpoint. So that way we get different text on this one. These both cannot be at the same endpoint. Now, this is freaking out right now in the sense that it's not auto refreshing, which I don't know why it's not auto refreshing because it should. So basically, anytime we make a change here, we have to quit the server and then restart it. All right, quit the server and then restart it. You'll see that I'm surprised the server started. Let's refresh the page here and see what happens. All right, you'll see that we see Hello World get printed out. How do we access hacks? Well, you look right here. This is the route it's on. Well, it's at the same place as Hello World. So these are actually both competing at the same spot. And Flask's default behavior is going to go with the first one it saw. So if we want to see this one show up, we not only need to give it a function name here in Python, but we need to give a quote-unquote function name to the endpoint. So we'll call this one hacks also. Hacks. There we go. And we'll close our server and restart it. Now, if we want to see this one in action, because if we refresh, you'll see we still see Hello World. Well, remember, the slash is for the root part of our domain, and we're automatically at the root. So if we do the root, which is the slash, and then hacks, and press enter, you'll see we're now at our new endpoint. We're accessing our new function, our brand new function from a web browser. From a web browser, we are utilizing our Python code and accessing straight up functions from the code. Any questions so far? I don't see any wait, oh. I feel like I missed something important. Not really. This is basically it so far. So as long as you can get it running, then you're good. How do we reach the web browser? Again, it's going to tell you the domain it's in on the Python output. It will always, Flask by default will always be at localhost 5000, right? You don't need to do, again, your loopback address. You can do localhost 5000. You guys should know this stuff. You guys should know this stuff because it's going to be on the exam. Your IP addresses, your localhost, your ports are going to be on the exam. You can't click run. You have to put in that command that I went over. You have to put in that command I went over. So this decorator, new thing. Don't worry about how to make one. We're not going to talk about that right now. All right. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but you can see how it instantly gives you power. It instantly gives you the ability to make your program accessible via new avenues. So you can potentially take things like your word guessing game or your dungeon crawler game, because we have functions in here. We also have libraries in here with heroes and inventory systems and all of this stuff. And you can turn this into endpoints, API endpoints via browser, and have them so they're accessible to anyone. This is a way you can add a fancy graphical interface to your program. You could utilize another language that can make better graphics for you. For example, something like C#, or if you're on Mac OS, using something like Swift. Or you could interface it with a web language like JavaScript, some HTML, CSS, and make it a web app. Make it a web app. And guess what? Web apps are great because they can be viewed on a web browser. You can view them on a mobile device, and now you've hit computers or desktops, and you've hit mobile devices. You write once and it works everywhere, which is really, really convenient. That is perfect. Yep. The Flask tac 2 tax app main run. That should work if you named your file main.py. If you didn't name it main.py, then change main to whatever you named your file. Whatever you named your file. So this, is super, super awesome. Right now, all of this is technically in more of a web browser format. How do you know this is in a web browser format? Well, there's a couple telltale signs. It depends on which browser you're on. All right. For Chrome, the number one sign is our default background for a web page is going to be white. If it's white, then that means it's trying to render it as a web page, which is no bueno. Second is there's HTML formatting going on, which is the second big telltale. If you, on your web browser, at any time you can right click and then do inspect. This will show you the file you downloaded, because again, everything that you view is just a file that you download to your computer. So you downloaded this web page to your computer and you can view the source code for it here. And we haven't gone over HTML yet, but this is going to be also a giveaway. Additionally, if you're on Chrome or Edge, it should be the same layout. If you're on Firefox, it should be similar. If you're on Safari or Opera or whatever else, try to follow along. I can't help you much there. All right. If you go over to the network tab, all right, there's a little tab called network. This is another way you can tell whether it's in a API format, more of an API format, or if it's in a web format, aka meant for like web pages. If we refresh here, you'll see on the network, we get this little thing popped up. This is the request we just made over the interwebs. Technically, this is on your local network, so on your LAN. You can see the request we made. It's right here. And when you look through this, it's going to have a lot of gobbledygook. The important thing is, if you look over to the response header, which is going to be the second part, that's the response we're getting from the server, aka the Python server running right here. You can see the response we're getting from the server. down here at content type, that's the type of content the server respond with. It is text/HTML. What does that mean? Well, it's going to be in text format, so normal text that you can read, and it's going to be HTML, which is what websites are made with. AKA, this is being rendered as a website, which we don't want. We don't want that. And you can see that when we go look at other APIs, so for example, maybe, OpenAI stuff, if we paste their API link, first of all, the background is black. If we right click here, you'll see that the formatting is different in the HTML, which we'll talk about more later. Additionally, if we go to the network section and refresh, you're going to see, don't worry that it's red. That has nothing to do with it. The big thing is, if we look right here, the content type is not HTML. It is JSON. JSON is the most common format for API requests. It's not the only one. It's not required. There's other ones like XML, CSV, I guess, for some of them. You can do basically anything you want, but HTML, technically you could use HTML also, but it's just not the most common or the most proper one you want, because there can be a lot of additional fluff in it, right? So JSON is what you'll typically see. So how do we make this maybe more of a proper format, right? A proper format. How do we do that? Because I barely understand what's going on here with Flask right now. Great question. Let's go look at Flask's library, their API here for their library, and see what's going on. Let's see what's going on, and let's see if they have anything in regards to it. All right? They have some stuff here called debug mode. There's a way you can set the host. All right? And if we look here, debug mode. Is debug mode what we want? Hold on. Let me see if debug mode does. I think it's just the way we have it set up. Because they have a hot reload feature, which means that as you change your code, it will automatically update the server. Yes. Oh my god, that's what we want. Okay. To everyone, put tac debug at the end of your thing. This will enter into hot reload mode. What does that mean? Well, now we don't need to stop the server anymore. Anytime we make changes, it will just automatically refresh. So if you see here in hacks, if I put some weird stuff at the end here and I do Control and S, look right here. If I do Control S, you'll see it automatically detects a change and reloads the server. So now if I go to the browser and click on refresh, you'll see I didn't have to restart the server. It automatically did it itself with our new code changes. So add debug, please. It's just going to be so much nicer than stopping and starting it manually. All right, I knew I was missing something. This is why you got to read the docs. All right, so let's keep reading along here. And unique URLs, URL building, HTTP methods. So there's that get and that post. Those are the most common ones. Static files, rendering templates, which is for HTML stuff. We're not going to get into that. Request objects, file uploads. All right. Cookies. All right. Redirect and errors. And APIs with JSON. Huh. That's what we want to do. You guys just learned about this thing called JSON, which we'll talk about more here in a second, but we know we want to do APIs, specifically with that keyword JSON. Huh. Well, let's read this a little bit. A common response format when writing an API is JSON. It's easy to get started writing such an API with Flask. If you return a dictionary or a list from a view, it will be converted to a JSON response. So if we return a dictionary or a list, it will auto do stuff for us. How great is that? We're right now returning strings. So let's change those strings into dictionaries or lists, shall we? I think the easiest thing would be just to make these into lists. So let's just puts a bracket before and after our text, and before and after our text. We'll save. With debug mode, it will auto hot reload for us. And now if we refresh our page, ooh, dark mode. Elite feeling. That's right, we've done it. We're now in proper JSON format for our APIs, right? For our APIs. Now, what is JSON? Why is it even a thing? Great question. JSON is a typical data format that you'll see. What does it stand for? JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. Will this tell me more for it? JavaScript Object Notation. But wait a second. We're not programming in JavaScript. I know, we're not. But usually, sometimes APIs are used on the front end. And guess what? If you're in JavaScript, having it in JSON format is very easy to then use in the JavaScript language. So why did JSON win? Because JavaScript is a thing and we want to make our front-end devs happy. All right. So this is a really easy way for the requests that you make to these endpoints to automatically work in JavaScript. Additionally, it's a really clean, small, lightweight way to transfer data. What do I mean by that? Well, the previous most popular method was XML. XML was another way to another format to transfer data. By format, I mean like, you know, I could send you just a like a bullet point list of stuff, right? Like if I were to email you data, do you want it a bullet point list? Do you want an Excel spreadsheets? Like, how do you want it? All right. You asking for that type of stuff is the same here, except in programming world, we usually format things slightly differently to appease the computer gods. So XML and JSON are the most common formats. If we look at XML, you'll soon see why XML is not as popular anymore. Will show me on the Wikipedia page. You can use XML. It's just a way to put your data together. Nothing is going to stop you from using XML, and I only got little tiny versions of it. So we'll look at this picture right here. Please don't. We'll look at this version right here. As you can see, XML is a little overwhelming. There's a lot of stuff going on here, which can be great because it's very well defined. But also, when I'm talking over the interwebs, right, data is expensive, potentially, all right? When you want to make something work well in, I don't know, the middle of nowhere US of A, or Canada, or the middle of nowhere Europe, or Africa, pretty much most of Africa, all right? They don't have the best internet. So the more data you have to send, the longer it will take and the slower it will be. This is a lot of overhead. XML has a lot of overhead and a lot of stuff that goes into it. A lot of things you have to type. As you can see, this is not dry. What do we like in the programming world? We like things that are dry. There's lots of stuff here that are not dry. So JSON, conveniently, is very dry and very nice. All right, very dry and very nice. An example of some JSON data would be potentially we can just make some ourselves. A Python dictionary is pretty much as close as you get to native JSON in Python. JSON is not a dictionary in Python. They are different. They are 100% different. Flask just makes it a little automated and seamless on using the two. But do not be confused. They are completely different. All right. So let's make a dictionary here and return it. All right. Let's make a dictionary here and return it. So where's the page that we made? Here it is. To make a dictionary in Python, as you guys know, we use some curly braces. We can open that up, and then it takes a key and then a value. So we can have a key like, I don't know, someone's name, and the value, their name, Elijah Hart. And then maybe we're making a game or something. So we got their health value. All right, their health value, let's say, is a nice bustling 3 right now. We're dying a little bit. All right, and then maybe we have our inventory, and our inventory is a list of things. All right, in our list of things, maybe we got some gum. All right, and we got some pens, and we have, I don't know, some money. All right, this is a dictionary. All right, because we have a key and a value. That value can be anything we want, from strings to integers to lists. All right, when we now refresh our page, you'll see that we need to be on the right endpoint. So we're on hacks right now. So let me change that to the root one. You'll see we get our JSON response. This is JSON. It's going to look pretty similar to a Python dictionary because the format is pretty much the same. JSON and Python dictionaries formatting are pretty much identical. They are not the same thing though. All right, they are not the same thing. They are not the same thing. If you try to send Python JSON data, it will not work. You have to do a lot of stuff to it to make it work. Flask does a lot of this for us automatically. All right, so this is again proper JSON. So when you talk to endpoints like the one ChatGPT has, and you want to get requests, here you go. This is a response, an example response of what they'd give you. They would give you some JSON data that maybe has an ID, and there's the ID, an object, when it was created, and this is going to be off of epoch time. Your choices, which is going to be an array of a bunch of choices, how much you used. So this is going to tell you how much you used of their chat service. All right, they're going to send you all this information. It's totally up to you on how you want to do your responses. So if you're making a game or something, you can have your responses fit whatever they need to be. All right, let us move this back. So let us see here. Any questions so far? All right, so go ahead and play around with this. Make maybe some new endpoints, copy and paste some things over. Have fun. We're only using a return, but this is a normal Python function, so you can do stuff in between here. All right, you could do stuff like, I don't know, what's 2? So x equals 2 times 2 plus 100, I don't know, or whatever that number is. And then you could just return that also. I don't know, let's just add something at the end of this. Let's say my cool number. And then we'll say x right here. So you can add x right here, and you'll see that when we go to the endpoint here and we refresh, you'll see that my cool number is this, which is the number of 2 times 2, which is 4, plus this number. So I guess we should do maybe like times that. Refresh. You'll see this number has changed because this, again, is just running Python code and then returning some type of output. This is no different than every return we've had so far in Python. This just happily returns it to an endpoint we're able to query in the web browser, right? An endpoint we're able to query in the web browser, all right? But just like all the other returns we've ever had so far. All right, so play with this a little bit. We're gonna go on break and we'll be back in 3 to 5 minutes, right? 3 to 5 minutes. So go ahead and play with this, have fun, experiment with it, and we're going to continue on our journey here a little bit. All right, we're going to continue on our journey here a little bit. I'll see you guys in 3 to 5 minutes. Alrighty. We are back to continue our journey here with this new magic we have discovered. Alright, this new magic we have discovered. But before we do that, real quick, if you weren't paying attention to our name, we are Rootkit, a non-profit organization here in the US of A. We have the industry's best comp sci certs. Don't go to college, don't go to any other boot camp. Come to us, all right? We're gonna teach you everything you need to know during 100 days of Rootkit on how to be a dev, all right? And enter the industry and start making that money. On top of all that free stuff, if you go over to our blog, we have our giveaway going on right now for week 10. You click on that, and then you can enter the giveaway, press the green button here, and just show that you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, following us on Twitch, and bam, you're entered in the giveaway to win some merch. Additionally, if you like what we're doing and you want to help support us, because doing stuff for free is very expensive, you can click the link in the description of the video, or you can click on the link somewhere on Twitch and get to here. All donations are 100% tax deductible, and they're all being matched 1-for-1 for the first 10,000 donations. Additionally, you can unlock super cool merch like our epic stickers, our collab t-shirt, and our epic sweater. And we have pillars along the way, like teaching for 24 hours straight, shaving my head here live on stream, and shaving my beard, right? Which no one wants to see, so we don't need to get that one, all right? Let us continue on our journey here. So we introduced a lot of new concepts really quick. Hasn't been this fast on going through new concepts since the beginning of Python. All right. So a recap. Flask is one of many libraries you can import and use to make REST endpoints, or sorry, API endpoints. All right, for other people to potentially hit and integrate with your application. All right, to be able to access the functions that you have created in your Python program. Additionally, you can use REST endpoints. All right, sorry, I keep calling it REST endpoints. API endpoints for you to access to enhance your program. Like, for example, integrating ChatGPT in your program that you're making. All right, or integrate NASA data in your program, or integrate a lot of things into your program. All right, you can utilize this. Now, we've showed you how to make your own server. Flask will automatically do it for you, and you just go about making your own functions, and then you wrap them with this little decorator, right? It will auto-magically make everything work, all right? You just need to specify what route you want it to be accessible at. And you must be returning dictionary or array data. This is how to make it. Now the question is, how do we go about using this? How do we use this stuff? Great question. At the same time we are running our server, we're going to make a separate Python program for reaching out to this endpoint and getting this data so we can use it in our program. This is the same way you would integrate things like ChatGPT into your program, all right? So I'm gonna make this, a little bit bigger so we can see here. There is in your terminal, because we don't want to stop our web server here. We don't want to stop our web server. So in this terminal, if you go all the way to the other side right here, right above my head, there's a plus button. I want you to click on that plus button. This will get us another PowerShell session. Or if you're on macOS, a new Bash session or ZSH session. All right, we want a new one. So that way this one is going to be our server and this one's going to be our new program. All right, let me close up all these other ones. Inside of, at least for me, the APIs folder, we're going to make a new one called, I don't know, using the API.py. You can name it whatever you want, all right? In here, we want to get the data from our server. Now, I showed you guys there's a couple ways we can go about doing this. We can use URL libs, but URL libs is kind of manual and kind of not the easiest to use out of the box. But there's a popular alternative that someone has made called requests. So if we go back to the interwebs here, and I think I still have it open. So remember, there's also socket, URL lib and socket that are pre-built in the Python language. Requests is not pre-built in the Python language, but it allows us to do simple things like request.get, and we can immediately do a get request like if we're in a browser, but we're not in a browser. So what do we need to do in order to get this magic? How much do we need to pay? Absolutely nothing. That's right. Like I said, in the programming world, you can get all this for free. But remember, you need to pay $200 for that next English 101 book. But if you want this software, you can have it for free. Just get that copy ready and then paste. A lot of work, I know, but we gotta do some work sometimes here, right? Work to get some nice free code, all right? Free code. Then we just press enter. So this is just pip installing requests, all right? I already have it installed. Yours may take a second to install, so go ahead and install that. How do we use requests? Well, again, let's look here. Like I said, there's a couple things you can do when you're looking at pip stuff. One, you can look at their main page and you can see they have some documentation here. Additionally, this might not be all the documentation they have. This may just be like a teaser of it. Click on the homepage link or try the documentation link over here on the side, all right, to see if you can get some more info. So let's try the homepage link first. Ooh, we got a whole website here with a lot of stuff, right? A lot of stuff that we can look at and mess with, all right? So we want to right now make a request. We want to make a request. We want to make what type of request? A GET request, right? These are all called requests. So your browser automatically does a lot of this for you. It automatically resolves domain names utilizing DNS to get the underlying IP address, because all websites are just IP addresses. It automatically performs a GET request for you. If you're going to HTTPS, it automatically does that encryption for you. It does a lot of nice magical things for you automatically. Some of these libraries will do the same thing. They'll do a lot of stuff auto-magically for you. Some of them, you may have to take some of the steps that a browser may do automatically for you. The good news is Request does a lot of stuff auto-magically for you. When you utilize libraries like Requests, you will find the potential limitations that it has just by using it. So if we click on Make a Request right here, it will take us to the directions on how to make a request. So we need to add import requests to the top of our file. So let's go ahead and steal that code and then paste it into our file here. Then it says, now let's try getting a web page. For example, let's get GitHub's public timeline. We're not going to get GitHub's public timeline. You can do this if you want, but we want to get instead our endpoint, our API endpoint. So we'll steal this code right here, and we see it's storing it into this variable R. Of course, we know variables can be named whatever the hell we want them to be. Just by default, they are naming it R. We see something called get or request.get. Get, again, is the HTTP method it's using, and this is the website it's going to. We want to change that to what site? To our site. All right, well, let's get this one, for example. Let's just copy the URL up here. Then we're going to paste it in here, all right? So http://127.0.0.1, port 5000, and at the root directory. Again, localhost, and 127.0.0.1 are the exact same address. All right, they are the exact same address. So the last thing to do here would be maybe to print the response. All right, so we can see what's maybe going on. So let's just do a print in an R. And not while your web server is running. While your web server is running, on the separate tab, let's run this file by doing, that's weird, Python using API. It would help if I'm in the right folder. So let me go and cd into the correct folder here. And then let's do Python using API and press enter. And something happened. We got something printed out. We may not know what it means, but it seems like something's working. It took a little bit to respond. If I rerun this, you'll see it took 5 seconds for it to respond. So it's kind of slow, but it worked. So what is going on here? Response means we got a response from the server. It worked successfully. If you don't get something called response here, well, I think you still might. If we mess up our website here and maybe do port 5, which nothing exists at port 5, and rerun this, what error? Do we get an error? I would imagine it would error out. Maybe it handles it. We get an error. So you'll get an error if it doesn't work. All right. If it does work, you'll get some type of response. So we see we get a response of 200. What does 200 mean? I'm so confused. Good. Remember C? Oh, I know. C. Painful. Painful times. I mentioned something passingly in C. When you return a 0, it means things were successful. They ran correctly. When you return a 1 or anything that's not a 0, it means something went wrong. Something went awry. This is a common occurrence in all languages, in all types of things, including your operating system. When you blue screen of death, you'll see a code come up. That will usually be a return code from the function that may potentially have messed up. All right, that's the same thing, C returning 0 or returning something else. Now, in HTTP, they kind of kept the same concept, except they messed around the numbers, right? They messed up with the numbers. 0 doesn't mean success, all right? 200 means success, all right? How do you know this? Well, great question. Google it and then memorize it, all right? You have to Google and memorize it. So if we want to see response codes, because this is going to be a response code, we can go Google it. All right, the best way to get your answer is first, what language or thing are you using? Software are you using? Well, yes, we're in Python. Let me rerun this. Oh, it's right here. Yes, we are in Python. This is not a Python thing though. This is an HTTP thing. This is an HTTP thing. So when we do our Googling here, we want to maybe start this with HTTP because this is an HTTP response code or status or whatever you want to use. All right. So we need to say HTTP because that's what it's for. And then we can say response. Oh, look at that. And it's auto-filling us with codes here. So let's Google this because we don't know what HTTP response codes are in general, but also what numbers mean what. So if we Google this and then click on this first link here by Mozilla, they have great resources. You can see here, these are the different types of response codes you can get. 100 through 199 are going to be informational responses. 200 to 299 means they were success responses. So this means this happened successfully. We did our GET request successfully. So the next question for us is how to get some data out of our request if this did happen successfully. We'll get to that in just a second. To finish up with our codes here, we have redirect, client errors, and server errors. Most likely you guys have seen plenty of client errors before. 404 is the most common client errors that people are aware of. All right, the 404 error right here. 404 not found. That's where it came from. It's an HTTP code. People have seen this and know it and don't even know that it's a part of the HTTP protocol. All right, 404 is notorious for being labeled for not found. All right, and that means it's a client error, which means that the client, aka you, requested something that doesn't exist. All right, you requested something that doesn't exist, so you're at fault. You're wrong. All right, you asked for something that's not real. When the server messes up, you'll get a 500 to 599 error, which means the server kind of blew up. All right, it's a little bit broken right now. All right, but 200 is golden. It's what you want. Any questions with that before we trek forward here? I'll wait 10, 20 more seconds for you guys to ask questions. I would double check that your make sure your server is running and make sure this is correct. I can't really help you without it more context. All right, so let us continue here. Now, we know it's responding successfully, but we want to see what we got. We want to see some of the data we got. How do we do that? Well, we can go searching on Flask's API, which will give us the answer, right? If we look at the rest of our tutorial here, which if I can find it, they don't give a straight up response. Let's read the docs right here. Now we have a response object. What is a response object? Well, an object means that it was made from a class. So this is going to have potentially functions and a bunch of other stuff pre-built into it, which means if we put a dot at the end of R, we should be able to see a bunch of options show up. We can get all the information we need from this object. All right, let's put that to the test. Let's do R and then a dot. Ooh, and look at that. We have this thing called close, contents, cookies, history, JSON data. Wait a second. We're sending we're sending JSON data as a response. So maybe we should do a JSON, do this JSON thing, since it says it will return JSON encoded contents of a response. All right. If you look through here, you'll see a bunch of stuff like raw, text. All right. Text will return a string, and some other stuff here. All right. So you can go through and mess around with this. Maybe content is what you want. Well, content is going to be bytes. So that might not be what we want because we don't want a bunch of byte data. We want maybe like strings and stuff. Again, we know we're using JSON, so we should probably be looking at JSON here. But there's also raw. So we could try doing raw. So let's kind of run with this stuff a little bit. Let's go ahead and print raw out. All right. And cannot open CD. Whoops, I'm on the wrong one. So if we try to print raw, well, raw doesn't really help us. That's printing out an object, so it looks like it wants dot and then some more stuff. We don't really know what to do with that. So this, again, if you didn't know it was JSON at first, you can go look at some of this stuff. There is text, so maybe we want text. Text should work. It will just look a little bit, no, that looks good. So you can see we can do text, and look at that. We have our data here. There's also JSON. So if we do JSON and rerun this, you'll see that we also see another output, slightly different than before, but output that we can use. Now, yeah, I guess we're gonna have to utilize that. So this is pretty neat. All right, we are sending, we have a server that has APIs that we can utilize. And then we have some code here that will request out and grab that site. Now, you can use requests for a lot more than that, because this is just going to request data using HTTP. Websites use HTTP, and websites are data. They're HTML data. So maybe using something like text on a website is going to be best for seeing the website's output. We can see this in action if we want to maybe get this website, because they told us we could try getting the GitHub website. I don't want to do the GitHub website. I want to do this website we're looking at right here. So if we do a request.get and put that website right there in here, and then we rerun this, you'll see we get a text output that is very, very large. There is a lot of data. This is the entire website. We just got it. We just got the entire website, downloaded it, and then printed it out on our console. This is how you can go about making, that's right, bots that will scrape the internet. All right, bots that will scrape the internet. How does Google go about doing Google searching? They have bots that scrape the interwebs. All right, so there's nothing stopping you right now from maybe making a list of websites you want to scrape, putting them in a loop, and then scraping them with this, right? The possibilities are endless, all right? The possibilities are endless with this. We're going to be focusing on the API requests, right? The API requests. So I'm going to change this link back to our server that we have, right? To our server that we have. So let's see. One last thing to go over before we end today is when we say JSON, which is a function, this is going to give us what type of data? We don't know. So let's do a type and put it inside of there. Because when we hover over here, hover over JSON, it says it's returning any. So this has any type of data. So we don't know if it's string, if it's an array, a dictionary, what it is. So let's get the type of it and see what type of data it is. So let's rerun this. It says it's a dictionary. It says it's a dictionary. Dictionaries are things we can use in Python, which is super awesome. It means we can use this data straight up in our Python code immediately with any type of, without any type of formatting. What do I mean by that? Well, if we save this into a variable, let's say our person variable, our person is going to be a dictionary with these items in it. What items? Well, we requested this. So we have health, we have an inventory, we have a cool number, and we have a name. So if we do something like print our person, and it's a dictionary, so we have to do brackets and then quotes inside and then say name, and we rerun our function here, we can see we have our name. We have our name because we got the data from this API endpoint. We got the name right here. So this is a way to do stuff in a really cool dynamic manner. So to kind of show this off a little bit more, let's say here I wanted to import random. All right, and then we're gonna make another route here. And we're gonna call this random. And we're going to return a random number. So we'll say our number is going to be random.randrange. So we're going to turn a random number between 0 and 10,000. All right. So when people go to /random, they're going to get a random number between 0 and 10,000. It's going to be in JSON format, which means 2 curly braces. It's going to say number and then have some type of random number. Yes, it can. I'll talk about that a little bit more here once I finish this up. So now we want to get our random number. So this is getting our person. So this right here is for getting our person. Whoops. Get a person. We kind of want to just copy and paste our stuff here, maybe down below, because when we go to /random, that will give us a random number. All right. So we can say our random number, and let's go ahead and print this out. So we can do print our random number, and remember it's going to be a dictionary. And what is the key of this item? Well, if we look right here, the key is going to be number. The key is going to be number, and the number is going to have a value that is random. So we say number right here, and we rerun this. It's going to be kind of slow. We're going to get an error here. That's no bueno. It looks like the server, the Flask server, kind of got mad and gave up. So let's go ahead and restart it. And it looks like it's still mad. This one's called, it's because our function here is called hacks, and this one's called hacks. You can't have 2 functions named the same thing. So let's just change this one to random. All right. Well, I don't want random to run into issues with this random right here. So I'm just going to call this rand instead. Let me restart the server. Looks like the server is happy again. And let's rerun our code. And it will take a little second because, all right, the first request happened and the second request happened. And we got our random number. Let me zoom in a little bit so you guys can see it. And this will be a different number every time we hit the server. So we got our first request back and our second request back. All right. This is a super useful way to go about programming and to enhance your capabilities, but not only that, to make your stuff more powerful and available to more people. There are whole companies and individuals who will just make useful services, put them on an API endpoint, and then sell access to it. Just sell access to it. That is it. There are actual whole websites and shops set up for developers where people just do this full time. They just make endpoints for you to access that will return to you useful information. All right. So this is super, super powerful. Now, in regards to secure sites as well, yes, secure sites and normal HTTP sites are no different. They are the exact same. Both of them are the exact same. One is just encrypted when in transit. So basically, there is, to use the slogans of the scummy VPN providers, by default, it will be military grade encryption that's established with your computer and the server, and data will be sent across fully encrypted. But it's the same HTTP. You can see this when we go to, I don't know, the Wikipedia site here. Let me copy that, throw it in here. I guess I should do this on a new request. So if we print r.text, so everything on the Wikipedia's website right here. Wikipedia is on an HTTPS connection, so it's going to be encrypted. This will handle it for you automatically. So if we go about running this, you're going to see that it's going to dump the entire Wikipedia page for JSON right here. We see it all. All right. It handles it automatically because, again, the data itself is normal. It's normal text. It's just when it goes over the internet is it encrypted. But your computer automatically does a lot of the decryption for you. Can I see your run API file real quick? Yes. This one? If you're asking decisions on how do you set up it to be HTTPS, we're not going to talk about that because that doesn't happen by default. Everything by default is HTTP because that is the real protocol. S is just for encrypting it over the interwebs, right? So everything you deal with and you develop by default will always be in its unsecure format because that's just how you go about making it. There are other products and services that you have to wrap on top to kind of do the security portion of it, right? Because if you have to do it yourself manually, it's not an easy process. It's very annoying. And even if you do encrypt it, it will still be scary for users because you know how you go to a browser here and the lock here means that it's encrypted. Sometimes it will be gray, sometimes it will be green. All right. This is because, again, we talked about this in our previous days, because the security measures they take are asymmetric, which means there's a public key and there's private keys. There are companies that people pay to be third-party mediators to tell everyone else in the world that this is legit or not. All right. So if we go to the connection information and look at their certificate, you can see that Let's Encrypt is the organization, the third-party organization that's saying this is a legit thing. If you were to make your own certificate and encrypt your stuff by default, it will do it. But if you ever see it in a browser, it's going to be a red lock, which by default, when you see a red lock, Google will tell you this is unsecure, which is a lie. Because it is secure, it is 100% encrypted, but they can't validate you are legit. You always have to go through a third-party person. Let's Encrypt is a free third-party person you can go through. They're a non-profit organization that will authenticate you, but that's a whole nother thing in itself. All right, we're not going to get into that, but if you're interested, you can look into Let's Encrypt. Right? Also, the only things that really need to be encrypted are sensitive data and login information. So the API that we made right now never really has to be encrypted. The Wikipedia website we visited, we're not logged in, we're just viewing public data. You don't need to have an encrypted connection for that. There's nothing there that's needed to be encrypted because it's just open free text data. So not everything has to be encrypted. All right, it's the default thing, but just because it's the default that you see on the interwebs doesn't mean it's needed. For example, our server here makes a random number, gives some output, and then gives this. There is no login interface for this. Anyone that wants to go to our server and get this information could get it if we made it publicly available. We don't have to put it on HTTPS. We gain no value by doing that. Absolutely nothing. It's just a default thing that people do. This would be perfectly fine and functional if we just kept it as HTTP. All right? Yeah, just wondering why anyone would be okay with their website being scraped. Yeah, encryption stuff doesn't protect against anything. Everything that you've heard online about encryption and the VPN stuff and XYZ, they're all lies. They don't know what they're talking about. All that does is keep your traffic in transit across the wires encrypted, so other people can't view what you're doing. To an extent, when it's on your computer, it's back to normal. And what are servers? They're normal computers. So when your request goes to a server, which is a normal computer, nothing is encrypted anymore. All right. And for scraping, a lot of people don't like and don't like being scraped. Some people like being scraped because it allows search engines like Bing and Google to scrape your information and then have you ranked higher on their site. So that's where scraping is great. If you don't want scraping, congratulations, you can do things to make it so they can't scrape you. Additionally, now your website is classified as the dark web, all right? Which most of the internet is the dark web. Facebook is a dark web website. You can't view most of what's on Facebook unless you're logged in. That's the key thing. Google can't scrape Facebook because you have to be logged in. If you try to do a request.get on your personal Facebook page or some type of page that requires you to be logged in to view, it will not work. You'll get a login basically page. Yeah, nice, got it, thanks, yep. But yeah, you can do some pretty shady stuff. I've done lots of shady stuff. I've scraped a lot of websites. Websites like Zillow, I've scraped. You can scrape pretty much the entire Zillow website and steal all of the agent information on it. You can steal all the statuses of, houses in your area. Zillow has an API you can integrate with, so you don't have to do this. The API doesn't have some of the information you may want, so you can steal it by scraping. What's the purpose of scraping? Taking data that isn't easily achievable. So if Zillow doesn't have an API that tells you all of the agents, like real estate agents that are on their website, you can utilize scraping to steal that information from their website. So I've done that to steal information from there and then sell it off to other third parties that were interested in that information. There's a couple hiking sites over in Washington State that have a lot, like thousands of hiking trails and good detailed information about those trails. I've built scrapers to steal all of that information and put it into databases so other third-party platforms can then use those hiking trails in their apps. A lot of information is stolen all the time from other people, all right? So if you were making a hiking app, you could scrape all the information from other states or countries' hiking information. You could steal it, put it in a database, and then make an app from that data. There you go. You didn't have to go collect it yourself. You just take it from other people, all right? Scraping is a very big business. Machine learning heavily relies on scraping, all right? So any massive machine learning algorithms that you've used, like GPT, ChatGPT, or any of the image generation stuff, they have bots that will go out and scrape the interwebs to get text data, to get images. They'll download all of them, and then they'll use them to train their models. All right. So scraping is a very popular thing that a lot of people do. There are entire libraries in Python built for just doing a lot of scraping automation, because like requests work, but request doesn't have everything you might want, or you might have to build some things from scratch. So there are scraping libraries you can use if you are interested in that. But overall, that is all I got for you guys today. All right, my challenges for you guys is to just mess around with this. Make some new routes. Do some Python programming in them. Maybe check out how to do post requests. I'm going to tell you right now, it may be as easy as saying post. Congratulations, you're doing a post request. Post requests allow you to also send some data along with this. You know, like how you post something on Facebook, you're sending your text out. Or if you're tweeting, you're posting that tweet. You're posting that text with your tweet. This allows you to send some data along with your request, so you can send that text data. So maybe look into how to do a post, how to handle it here, and I'm pretty sure the next I'm pretty sure the next thing on the Flask docs we were looking at may have the answer in here, right? May have the answer. Well, this is for requests. So this may have the answer right here for you on how you go about doing that for the request library. So the follow-up question would be, how do you handle that extra data in the Flask section? So maybe you look around in there, figure that out, just mess around with it, right? That's a big thing. Just mess around with it. Tomorrow we'll go over posts. We'll go about how to use posts, how that can make your application like 10 times more powerful. And then we'll do our word guessing game. We'll make our word guessing game, right? We'll remake our word guessing game utilizing a third-party server, a third-party API system, all right? Any other questions before we call that a day? I hope you guys are seeing the importance of the foundations that we taught before, because it's going to help a lot with when you want to do stuff like this or make a server, and understanding the IP addresses, the names, the HTTP, the HTTPS, the protocol requests, the port numbers. It's all important when you get to these steps. But I don't see any other questions rolling in. So I'm going to say that I think we're good. So I will see you guys tomorrow on the next one.